Hey, it's Brad, Jack of all Ventures. I'm going to do another segment of my divorce story. And actually, coincidentally, I'm walking past this house. Gosh, I didn't, that's my subconscious for me. Um, just note that for way later in the discussion. But the reason for my video is because the society has changed a lot in the last 55 years since the first no-fault divorce has been laws have been created, and we definitely need a change. Society is moved on to a point where we no longer honor any kind of commitment in marriage, and we need to update the laws to reflect the current situation. Unfortunately, the current situation won't change a lot because, you know, people just accept things the way they are. Like, that's the way they've always been. So that's the way it should be. So when I have these discussions on marriage reform, a lot of people are like, whoa. And then the other big reason I think is somewhat significant is the legal profession. And it was illustrated by a movie about 15 years ago, and nothing's changed. That the legal profession benefits from the business of divorce, and they don't want it to change, and they will make sure that it doesn't change. And I think there's a significant amount of truth to that. So anyways, I got this clip queued up from James Sexton on a podcast from like 8 months ago. What I would really like to do, but I haven't found the time or the discipline to do it because I am in the stress of and trauma that comes with high conflict divorce, and it doesn't need to be high conflict. That's another point. See, I tangent too many times, but the current podcast, just within the last week, James Sexton was on Flagrant podcast, and I've watched it all the way through. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes, and I made like an hour video of me watching that, pausing the clips and stuff. But it was my very first reaction, and it's not something I can post because I'm in the middle of a very serious legal problem, and I got to be somewhat careful with this. And anyways, here's the clip. I'm going to start out by saying, since I'm a little bit anal on details, and it's part of my problem, my wife is even worse than me. That's something that judge really need to realize. If she didn't have a lawyer speaking, she would sound even worse than I do. But it says 48% of first marriages end in divorce. To me, that means 52% of first marriages are actually so it's more likely that your first marriage will hold true. Now, whether it should or not, he makes a bunch of points on that. But the fact is, still, at this point, if these numbers are correct, a few more marriages last than don't last. So what he says is actually wrong, because he's playing in the gray area of in the middle. And it doesn't matter anyways. It's still a very likelihood that you're going to end up in divorce if you get married. I mean, I don't know what the chances are of getting red or black in roulette, but you know, they throw those couple green ones in there and it might be 48%. So yeah, I mean, you're rolling the dice when you get married if you think you're not going to end up having to deal with this problem that the legal profession has created to support business for itself. And so here goes the clip. Brad, Jack of all Ventures, and I'm going to do another segment of my divorce story. And it's been just over a week now since my last divorce hearing, and I haven't actually made a video on it. And it was one of the worst experiences of my life, this particular hearing, because I got to feel the realness of the business of divorce. And I guess what I'm going to start with here is I'm going to play this clip right here. And it's going to be as short as I can make it to illustrate my point of why we need marriage reform or divorce law reform or whatever, because we don't need lawyers in people's lives if there's going to be no fault. If there's no fault to marriage, which in 1969, then Governor Ronald Reagan of California signed the first no fault divorce laws into existence, and at the time there was some decent reason for it, but it's 55 years later. So now we need to make some changes because the world has changed in the last 55 years. And this particular clip here is one of the best. So let's listen.
Let's use 56, let's use 48, whatever you want to use. This is a huge number. It is more likely than not that it will fail. So what is the likelihood of harm? That's high. What is the severity of the harm? Most people who've been through a divorce will tell you it was one of the most traumatic experiences of their life.
Sure.
Some will tell you it was absolutely catastrophic. I mean, any of us who've ever had a breakup know, like, a breakup is tough. A breakup is, you can say to anybody in any culture, like, breakup, and they go, ugh.
Yeah.
So I'm going to agree with him that it's one of the most traumatic experiences of your life. I've been to Iraq, and I'd rather go back to Iraq. From what I remember, the day-to-day things of when I was in Iraq, I would rather deal with the day-to-day things when I was in Iraq to the day-to-day things of what I'm dealing with today. And I also was at Officer Candidate School for the Navy too. And there's Officer and a Gentleman, that movie with Richard Gere from way back. It made Officer Candidate School look fun. And I'd rather go back to Iraq before I go back to Officer Candidate School. And I think I'd rather go back to Officer Candidate School before I deal with a divorce. The first 4 weeks of Officer Candidate School were pretty bad but I had a very short window that it was going to come to an end eventually and get better. And this should come to an end and get better eventually. But unless my wife wants to try some kind of collaborative approach to working things out, I'm stuck in the business of divorce, and there's no way out. I'm currently interviewing lawyers, and I'm in a bad position to be interviewing lawyers because I've already fired 2 of them. And then the legal system has given me 6 months to try to work it out. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt I think it's more likely that they're just unorganized and chaotic, and that's why it's taken so long to get a follow-on hearing. That was a horrible experience. I was treated like they were in the movie. Since I didn't have an attorney, I was treated like crap. And my position is, because of no fault divorce, I'm in court through legitimately no fault. I think if we actually were able to put the elements of our marriage in front of the judge and talk about how we treated each other, they might agree that it's better for us to part ways. They might depends on the person too, how committed the person is and how much the person believes in marriage and any of that. There's so many variables. But I think a lot of people would say, there's plenty of room for our relationship to be saved. We never cheated on each other. We lost connection through some legitimate things, that like different beliefs on COVID, different political beliefs a little bit. The world's changed a lot in the last 15 years. And these aren't reasons to break a commitment to marriage. And especially when, I don't know. But they are for some people. So whatever. Actually, that's an interesting point I'm going to make too real quick. One of the videos that's just started playing is it's going to be a woman making a video that's, I got to go back and watch it. But basically it sounded like she's going to talk women into getting divorced. And that's part of the problem that's out there I see today, is the culture out there is, no, don't stick it out. Don't create lifelong bond. If it's not working, get out. Which is fine if we can get out fairly. without creating a bunch of trauma in business for lawyers. So unfortunately, I guess, so enough on that tangent. The realness of my situation is my wife's lawyer is aggressive. He didn't try to help encourage mediation. The last time I actually talked to him, he hung up on me because I basically was pointing out that he didn't encourage mediation. He's encouraging the battle. And one of the lawyers and part of the problem is all these guys know each other. So now when I got to go try to interview lawyers, they're like, oh yeah, you've already fired too. Who have you fired? And they know each other. So the guys I fired aren't that bad. Well, yeah, and they're reputable, and a lot of it is because my standard is really high. It's like so I told one guy, it's like, yeah, what I'm looking for is a lawyer that will try to de-escalate and try to get us to mediation so we can work this out peacefully amongst the two of us. And he's like, well, your wife's lawyer is a jerk, and that won't happen with him because he's just got this conflict personality that he just can't help himself. And it's not that he's a bad guy, he just can't help himself, and he's a jerk. And that it's like minute that he explained that to me, it explains like my whole experience with her attorney. And that's kind of what bothers me about the laws now. Or it only takes one person to be a little bit jerkish, hire a jerk lawyer, and then the other person's life is screwed. And I have no choice. Because fairly, morally and ethically and whatever, if you look at our relationship, because our relationship wasn't like other marriages, and the law should be able to work in variances in the relationship, but they don't want to. They want to just simply do this 50-50 rule that makes it really easy for lawyers to create relatively stress-free business of just playing with a bunch of paper and putting a bunch of numbers on paper, take out all emotion and all of that, and let's just help these people split up their money. That's all the lawyers are there for, and it's easy business for them. I'm going to draw a little comparison thing here. Is what I've done in my mind to try to understand and try to help myself deal with the lawyers. I gotta be careful because I'm crossing the bridge here, and I am walking very legally blind because of my post-LASIK ectasia. Don't get LASIK without doing the research. Those LASIK surgeons will lie to you so they can get business themselves too. Side note. The thing I've been doing is, like, I'm a professional pool installer. I've done it all my life. I've seen case after case after case of above ground pool. Most of them are just, the dealer sends me a name and an address and I go put it up and leave. But once I kind of graduated from that and being a little bit more self-employed, I get some more unusual cases. So I'll get people that call me that tried it themselves. I'll get people that had other bad installers, and I got to come save it. And there's much fewer above ground pool installers than there are lawyers. But the difference is we don't know each other very well. I mean, eventually you start to know of the other ones. And, if the customer says, yeah, I bought my pool here, I'm like, oh boy, you got a real problem. Or if they say I bought the pool here, I'm like, oh, what the heck happened? Because they usually do an okay job. So I'm sort of in a situation where I fired a couple lawyers that, it'd be like pool customers that bought their pools from okay dealers. Now, maybe not the best of dealers, but, or, hired on their own installer that, that I know that does okay work. I mean, some of the, yeah. So when I go interview lawyers, I'm in this really weird position because I've already had fair amount of experience. I wish I had this experience before I hired my first lawyer, because then I wouldn't have just been naive and stupid and hire the first person that I was recommended to from our financial planning people. And turns out it's a red flag that if when you talk to the lawyer, he's like, oh yeah, I was just standing there and I was chatting with your wife's attorney because he was filing the paperwork. I just happened to bump into him. You know what? That's a red flag that you're not going to get. Good chances you're going to get lawyers that care more about themselves and working with their buddies than they are trying to find something that's fair for you and your wife as you're going through this difficult time. And I mean, that's what took me 6 months to understand, that that's what they were doing. They were, I mean, and not in a really bad way, just in a way that the law allows, because big corporate legal doesn't try to fix the problem or won't let the problem be fixed, because it helps, you know, the whole profession get business. And I know that's pretty cynical, and you know, I wish it weren't true. But there's also, you know, if you want to parallel it into other kind of, oh crap, that is a car. It's a car. I didn't see that car. I don't know if you've seen it in the video or not, but I had plenty of time to cross, but I didn't know it was going to be there when I started to cross. I was a little too relaxed. Maybe I shouldn't be walking blind and crossing roads making videos. But, you know, that's an interesting now. I mean, it's going to be worse for me. But if a car hits me because I'm blind, it's my fault. But the person driving the car is probably going to, if they're a good person, they're going to suffer too. So I need to be more careful when I cross the road, because although I'm willing to take my own personal responsibility, I don't really want the driver to suffer the stress of accidentally hitting me. And I still think the chances of me getting hit there were still pretty low. If the car was closer, I would have noted it. It was still pretty far when I was able to see that it was there. But it is much more dangerous crossing the road if you can't see. All right. So I don't know where to keep going on this video. I've watched. Another thing I've done is, in preparation for hiring lawyers, is just yesterday I watched all of it in kind of double speed. But it's like 3 hours and 45 minutes of videos that I have on this subject. And that's not even, that's just the ones that are like chronological leading up to today's video. And I don't know, it's interesting to me to watch it back, because you know, some of the little finer details you forget, but the bigger stuff is consistent. The bigger stuff is very consistent. And I think my story is an unusual one, just because of the fact that both our first marriages, married late in life, both financially independent, never commingled funds. Although I did mess up because I thought I was married for the rest of my life, and I didn't think it mattered at the time when I was investing in real estate. I put her name on it, even though I used all my own funds to do it, and a lot of them premarital, probably all of it premarital early on. That's what I was doing. I was restructuring my investments into something I felt was good, because I got married in 2011 during the housing crisis. So that's when it was a good time to buy houses. So, and now it's a bad time to get divorced if you bought houses, because the values are up. And I'm really not ready to sell, but likely because I made the mistake of getting married to somebody that's willing to quit the marriage and then take from the marriage. I might be forced into selling them, or selling some of them, which is insane to me. Because I want to stay committed, and she doesn't. So, and she didn't even pay. I mean, she didn't even loan. She's admitted to me, which, if I can make this a knockout, drag out fight, it might matter. That's one thing I got to try to learn and understand, that it does seem like when I watch James Sexton's videos and stuff, it seems like if you push it to trial, they will start to consider how you treated each other. And that's when it gets to be expensive, because the lawyer's got to put in a lot of work to prove how things were and why they don't deserve 50% or whatever. And I got my wife recorded as telling me, yeah, you worked really hard, saved up your money, you bought all these houses on your own, and I didn't help you except that one time, and you paid me back right away. So yeah, it's road noise, super loud right now. So anyways, that's some of the truth that's going on in our relationship that makes it harder for me to step back. And I mean, I got the betrayal of her leaving me and breaking up with me. It's kind of like at the beginning of this, that part's hard. And then then she hired a lawyer that's going to be aggressive and not let her mediate, and encourage her not to mediate, because it's a smart business decision for her. Where that's another thing one of the interviewed lawyers mentioned, it I already kind of agreed, but he's like, marriage is a very bad business contract. It incentivizes the less productive partner to leave the relationship. And so the harder you work, the more productive you are, the more you have to put into the business to keep the business. And then the less productive partner gets rewarded if the business fails. So the less productive partner is incentivized by the current marriage laws to destroy the business. And that's what's wrong. And that's why we really need change. All right, what I'm gonna do too is that the clip that I started with, I'm just gonna let it kind of go 5-6 minutes of it, and let you watch that, so you can see it's not just me talking about this stuff. I mean, there's some good legitimate reasons for marriage reform, although James Sexton doesn't call for it, because he's in the business and he profits from the laws being the way they are. So ultimately, I'm sure he doesn't want them to change. Which I think he knows that they need to. And if you watch that most recent podcast he was on, the Flagrant podcast, and I'm probably, if I can find the motivation, which I have the motivation, but I don't know how I have the time and the patience for it. I should pick that one apart, kind of like we did this. I could maybe do one every day or two on just one specific spot, and why each time he covers a subject, I just watch it. I'm like, yeah, that's why we need marriage reform. That's why we need marriage reform. Bam, bam, bam. For really good reasons too, because sometimes the lawyers throwing gas on the fire creates create homicides. They create suicides. They create stuff like that from the stress. And if the lawyers weren't allowed to do what they do, because the laws weren't what they were, and if there was no fault in the marriage, then you can't use lawyers. You have to mediate. It's a very simple solution that would be good for most people, and bad for lawyers. If 48% of first marriages end in divorce, then it's prevalent enough. And actually, most of those, as long as they don't have a high conflict situation, that's the lopsided situation that mine creates. I'm in a small minority of people that get really sucked into this trap. And good majority of the people live payday to payday. So, just sorting out some, but there's a significant number of us too that, just are more responsible. I shouldn't say it quite like that, because that might make a bunch of people mad. But if you live a life that's a little bit more conservative and don't live on the edge of financial ruin, then you're in a situation where the lawyer's got more to steal from you. I mean, I think those words are legitimate, because the business of the divorce was a scam for people in my situation. And yeah, I guess I'm going to quit before I get too frustrated and emotional and say a bunch of crap that I shouldn't put up, because I'm in the middle of a legal battle. And out for now. Check out the rest of this so you can make your own opinions based on what James says. Comment what you think about no fault, no lawyers, and how much that would help other people besides me, because that's the biggest reason. I mean, the judge mentioned at our hearing that, I'm going to be okay either way. Well, yeah, I'm going to be okay because I made smart decisions my entire life. I never got stuck in a bad marriage early on in my life. I worked extremely hard. I mean, way harder than I'm even capable of now. Going out there and hustling and getting business and doing as many jobs as I possibly could and saving my money. I went to Iraq. I saved my money so I could be comfortable and retire early. And yeah, I did a lot of smart things. So I did one dumb thing, and then she gets the benefit from it because she's incentivized by the law to leave, when she's probably missing out on the potential of a good relationship too, because it wasn't that bad, really. I mean, we went on vacations, and yeah, we're ready to retire and enjoy our retired life. And I don't know. Yeah, I'm really gonna get bad if I keep this up now. I'm out for now. In conclusion, I don't know what I rattled on. I'm pre-recording this before I go out for my walk. But I did watch this this James Sexton thing, and I'm gonna let this play through, and you can watch as much as you want. In conclusion, thanks for watching my video. We need marriage reform. Marriage ain't what it used to be, and lawyers don't need to be involved. They just help wreck our lives even more while we're going through the worst time of our lives. That's what you should got out at the beginning of this. I don't know what I say in the middle of it. I got an idea what I'm probably going to yabber on about, or just yabbered on about for you guys. And this is the conclusion. This is what got me started this morning. So, yeah, enjoy this. And thanks again for watching. And please like and subscribe to my channel. Okay, as promised, here's going to be the conclusion of my video. It's going to be the more extended version of James Sexton talking on the Jordan Harberger show. And if I didn't mention it before, James was just on the Flagrant podcast. That's kind of what's got me back into the James Sexton stuff. Kind of accidentally stumbled across this one, but I woke up this morning thinking this one here would make a really good point for why we need marriage reform. And that's really my biggest point of sharing my story and everything, is because we need marriage reform. So this is the longer version of what I cut a little bit out in the beginning. And I mean, if you watch any James Sexton stuff, he never talks about, needing marriage reform, because the business of divorce has created his whole profession. I mean, he's made all his money in the business of divorce, so he does not want the laws changed. But the laws need to be changed. You hear everything that he talks about, you should realize the laws need to be changed. And then it would disrupt his business. So I don't know, there's a segment of James that I think is a really good guy, and part of why he's talking is to try to keep people out of the trap of marriage and the business of divorce. But yet, if you get stuck, he's more than willing to make the money. And he's not going to try to make the laws change so you don't get stuck. He's just going to tell you, don't get stuck. All right, that's my little rant about James. Here is the video that, in play.
Negligent behavior. Tell me about that. I mean, we probably have to define negligence.
Yeah, well, I think it fits the definition of negligence. So
Yeah.
negligence is a failure to perceive a substantial and unjustifiable risk of serious harm.
Yeah.
Right? That's the definition. Black's law. We're law school grads. Come
That's
on.
right.
So that's versus recklessness, which is a conscious disregard for a substantial and unjustifiable risk of harm. And so you might remember from torts in the first year, the BPL analysis, right?
I mean, a little bit.
Really? Yeah. See, it's got stuck in my head,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, and I have one of those memories that, like, I know the entire of Jay-Z's Reasonable Doubt album, you know, but I can't remember my kids' birthdays.
Oh, good.
But I have the whole thing. Yeah. My ex-wife thinks it's hilarious.
Yeah.
So
I
the
should chop
reality
this up.
is that negligence is defined
Some
essentially
really good points here.
as what's called a BPL analysis, which is the burden of not engaging in activity, and what is it relative to the likelihood of harm and the seriousness of harm. So if there's a likelihood of harm, but it's minimal harm, then it may not be negligent, especially if not doing the thing is a substantial burden, right? Whereas, so like driving, for example, if you drive, there is a substantial likelihood you'll get in a car accident at some point, and a car accident can be a very high degree of harm. However, refraining from driving would be very difficult to do, especially in some areas of the world, right? So driving can't be said to be a negligent activity. Skydiving, okay, the risk of harm is fairly high. If something goes wrong, the risk of catastrophic harm is incredibly high. And the problem or the burden of refraining from skydiving is minimal.
Right.
So that is negligent, an inherently negligent activity, right? So marriage, you could pretty easily argue with a 56% fail rate. Okay, so that's
Is
the
that
problem.
is that the stat?
That's
now?
the current stat.
Okay.
That's the current stat. It's always a moving target. But the current stat is 56. Now, again, that's just the divorce rate. So that's the people who went in and filed a divorce and are getting divorced.
Okay.
What percentage of people stay together for the kids
I
or
see.
for religious reasons or because they don't want to give away half their stuff? Like I would imagine a fairly high number.
Sure.
But let's just forget those people. Let's say that as success stories of some kind.
Sure.
Like you know what, we're winning the battle because we're not getting.
All right, those are success stories. Yeah, they kind of are, except for the latter. The last one, you know what? I just didn't even completely pay attention. My mind was drifted. I've already watched this a couple times. Maybe they're all bad reasons and why we need marriage reform. But the last one is giving up half your stuff. If the laws weren't what the laws were, then you would be able to. I mean, that wouldn't be just one of the reasons you stick out a terrible marriage. You shouldn't have to give up half your stuff if you want to break up. If you want to, depending on how you lived your life in the marriage. I mean, if we're going to look big picture at everything that's going on in society today, marriage isn't a thing anymore because they've taken the commitment out of the marriage. It's like in society today, it's like you don't stay in jobs long term. You don't do anything long term. I'm ad-libbing this as I go. That's why I probably shouldn't have stopped this. I should have. So, you know, the whole employment structures and stuff have changed because, I don't know. We need to rethink marriage, the whole concept of it, and getting business for lawyers when it goes bad for no fault is not a good reason to have. We don't need lawyers to handle this common problem in society of marriages failing. We need therapists. We need trained conscious uncoupling counselors. We need people to work through to help both people have a pleasant or not a horrible traumatic experience. I mean, for me, I guess I'll bring this little bit of my story back into this because this is what's making this a horrible traumatic experience. It's super rough with the breakup, but because we're married late in life and we never commingled funds, now she's not only does she have the power to make the decision whether we stay together or not, because marriage was a commitment that, you know, both people should have some say in whether the commitment gets, the contract stays moving forward. I certainly understand the concept where you got to help the person that wants to get out as opposed to the person that wants to stay in. But it's also leaves out the feelings and desires and the needs of the person that wants to stay in. So the person that wants out is the one that gets preferential treatment by the system. And then we have what one of the attorneys that I interviewed recently said. He's like, marriage is a horrible business contract and nobody would ever consider doing it because it helps the less productive partner when you terminate the contract. And that's kind of exactly what it is. And it incentivizes the less productive partner to fight and create business for the law. And really, again, I guess I keep beating this home, is there's better people to help dissolve a failing relationship than lawyers. 100%. So no fault, no lawyers. All right, listen to the rest then.
Divorce. We're both miserable, but this endurance contest continues and we're winning.
Setting a terrible example.
Yeah, we're
for our
setting a
kids.
terrible. This is exactly right. We are going to hang in there and we're going to not get divorced. It's really admirable, I guess, in some way.
Is this 56% of couples or 56% of marriages?
Of marriages.
Okay, so the people who get divorced like 5 times, they're skewing this a little bit.
Yes, but they represent a very small percentage of the population. If you look at just the first marriage failure rate, it's like 48%.
That's pretty bad.
It's still really bad. I mean, look at it, put it in relative terms. Toyota had a car in the...
So I'm actually going to take this little, or I don't know. You're here this far. You can listen to some of the little boring stuff about that James goes into, and it's actually good. I was Navy officer, and I do have some background in risk management and stuff like that. So some of this stuff here is actually pretty interesting in risk management. But why I pause this is because it means 52% of marriages do work. 52% of first marriages do work. And these are people that, maybe they know of the problems of the lawyers involved in the divorce and they don't want to take that risk. So they try harder to stay in their marriage, like we just got done talking about. Or maybe it's, the people that actually value the commitment and the lifelong partner, and they do stay in the marriage because they believe that's the right thing to do. And it doesn't matter that marriage laws have changed so that there is no commitment. They have the personal fortitude to honor the commitment that they did, even though the law no longer requires them to do so. And my main point is, over half the people that get married for the first time don't have to endure the lawyers. So at least, I wanted to be one of those people so bad. And I never knew how bad the lawyers were going to be. And it could be even worse than it is for me right now. But no lawyers. No fault, no lawyers. We need a better way.
90s that had a 0.0001 brake failure rate.
Yeah.
And they recalled the entire line of vehicles until they could fix it.
Yeah.
Because they were like, that is an unacceptable risk.
Right.
0.0001, not even 1%.
Yes, because
So
if your brakes fail, you're going to kill
let's
people.
Use 56, let's use 48, whatever you want to use. This is a huge number. It is more likely than not that it will fail. So what is the likelihood of harm? That's high. What is the severity of the harm? Most people who've been through a divorce will tell you it was one of the most traumatic experiences of their life.
Sure.
Some will tell you it was absolutely catastrophic. Any of us who've ever had a breakup know, like, a breakup is tough. A breakup is, you can say to any...
And the reason I started with this is because that's why we don't need lawyers throwing gas on this already bad time. It's already an emotional time. These guys make our lives worse. No fault, no lawyers.
Anybody in any culture, like, break up and they go, ugh,
Yeah.
it's like we all know that feeling in the pit of your stomach, and like that. We all have that. So a divorce is just that on steroids,
Yeah.
So
The trick is to be lonely and play video games by yourself all day.
I mean, listen, there's a school
one
of
way
thought
out
that
of it.
says that
Right.
like
Some
not
are using
having
it.
extended relationships
Another
with
reason
any
why
kind
we
of
need
intimacy and just
marriage
sort of
reform,
lead-pipe
so
cruelty and
we have a
mercenary
better
sensibility
option.
is the way to go. I don't know. I'm not. I don't know that I'm the expert on the right way to do it. My mother used to always say that she couldn't define intelligence, but she could spot stupid a mile away. I don't really know what makes people happy,
Mm-hmm.
I
but I
can't
know
really
what
remember
doesn't.
where the best
I know what
spot
makes
is.
the text a relationship.
Sure.
And so
Wrong pause button. We at some point I need to know where to stop this, and this is good for now. I mean, this I have a James Sexton playlist on my channel if you